Alright, here we are. Welcome everyone and a very good evening to One Up Racing Season 23. Tonight's Round 8, the ERT of Belgium on the legendary Spa-Francorchamps circuit. I'll be your host for tonight. My name is Misky and I'll be guiding you through as we have our race here tonight. This time around, regular weekend. And I'm going to give you some information on what happened last week. Last week I was casting the P2 tier, but I will go over the results with you for P3 and let you know everything that you need to know for tonight before the race gets started. First things first, the things that we need to look at are the engine penalties. Because remember, every driver will have to change their engine at least once. And for today, we have 3 drivers that have chosen to go for the switch, including our championship leader, Letma Funky. Aside from him, Ols and Matthias have also gone for the engine change, which sort of makes sense. I mean, Spa, 2 DRS zones, long straights, easy overtaking. This is where you want to take your engine penalties. We've seen it last year in Formula 1 with Red Bull's Max Verstappen going for an engine penalty there and still winning the race. So definitely don't count anyone out there, especially because we will have 22 laps in total that the drivers will be going for. Additionally, our standard one-hub racing rule, so 2 mandatory pit stops that we have. For tonight, we'll be using equal cars again because that issue seems to be fixed, and we have red flags again set to reduce since that issue has also been fixed. So quite a bit to talk about and quite a bit to look at. In the meantime, I'm going to take a quick peek in the game. It doesn't seem like we have loaded in yet. So the next thing that is important to do is show you the calendar and see what has happened up until this point. If we look at our calendar, after tonight we will still have 4 more races to round off the championship. We've had our races in Qatar, Imola, Hungary, Brazil, Japan, Vegas, and last week we had Portugal. And about Portugal, I do want to fill you in on the results because we have a new race winner this season, and that is Nick. Nick has picked up his first race win after already picking up a multitude of podium finishes. He's picked up 2 second places and 3 third places. So his 6th time on the podium for the first time on the top step. So big congratulations to Nick. Huge shout out to you. You've done amazing last week. Our championship leader finished in 2nd, Letma Funky, and with the podium completed by Ghost, who has now moved himself up into 4th position in the championship, leapfrogging Giggle, who DNF'd from last race. If we look further down for more results, the dog Shelby coming in 4th, second best result this season so far, aside from a 3rd place in the sprint race in Vegas. 5th place coming in for Rachman, 2nd in the championship, now tied for 2nd with Nick. And P6 we find King. P7 was for Mason, and then the top 10 rounded off by Shikways and Truth in 9th, and P10 went to Hookie. So those were your results from last race, last time around. That is how that went. Let's see if we can find something nice about the races so we have our full results, so we can see a little bit more. Go to the P3 tier. So yeah, Ghost won it. Well, Ghost also had pole after quali, and during the race we saw him win by a fairly sizable margin, 8.5 seconds over Funky, and then 5 seconds after that was Ghost, and another couple seconds behind that was a dog Shelby, who did set the fastest lap in Portugal, 1:19.0, which was a couple tenths quicker than the other drivers, although there was one driver in P14, Jamie, who came awfully close to that. He scored 1 point for fastest lap, being in P14. Remember, if you're outside P12, you can still get a point for fastest lap. And you got a 1:19.044 in comparison to the 1:19.007 that the dog Shelby managed to set himself up for. Now that we've covered that, I'm gonna look again in the game because I think we'll be starting in a moment, so more people have been joining in, and I believe we've had some changes as well, so it'll be a little bit of catch up for me at the start of the evening to see what exactly has changed. I think we have some new drivers as well, so that is why that is important for me to keep an eye on. And if I scroll down, yeah, I think we have Caden now joining us. He'll be driving the Alpine, and that is going to be taken over from, let's see, are there Alpine drivers for Trunder? No, Trunders is still there, so they already removed the other driver from it. So Caden has stepped in, and yeah, Shikwe stepped in 2 rounds ago, so he is also already on the board. So yeah, for Caden, hopefully he can pick up his maiden points here tonight and ensure that the entire grid has picked up points so far this season. The standings then. Stands in a championship. Important to note, Funky, as I already mentioned, is our championship leader. 147 points to his name. Loads and loads of points, and has quite the gap over his next competitors. A 55-point gap to be precise, over both Rachman and Nick. Following behind that, 25 points behind, so from 92 we jump to 67 points. Colston 4th, and with Giggle at 57, he has to look in his rearview mirrors because Truth has 54 in P6, Jamie 47 P7, Matthias, who took the engine penalty, 42 points in 8th, and then Fozzie Bear follows by 1, and Jess rounds off the top 10 with 39 points. But I believe she did not participate in the last race. And she was absent, she was away for a week. So that is everything you need to know about the standings and what is going to be happening so far. In the meantime, I'm going to tab in again. We have quali selected, but we have not started yet. But I think it's first time that I give a short word to our sponsors before I'm going to give you some more information about the track. For this season of One Rep Racing, we have a £2,500 prize pool split around the tiers. With some gift cards, as you can see as well. So the Drivers' Championship, the winner gets a £50 voucher for which they can choose if they want it for PS or Amazon. And the entire top 5 will also have free entry into the next season, which I believe is £8, which they will not have to pay. And also for the constructor winners, they get free entry into the next season. And at the moment, if we look at the standings, it is also the Haas team leading the championship there, mainly because Funky has such a massive lead over the next competitors. Haas 189 points compared to McLaren's 133 and Aston Martin's 124. Continue on with our sponsors. We have NLR, who is sponsoring this lovely seat, the FGT Elite Light Cockpit and Elite ES1 Sim Racing seat, worth about £699. This will be given to one of the winners from the 3 series. So 1 seat for either the winner of Tier 1, 2, or 3. Same thing for all drivers in 2nd and 3rd in the championship. They have a chance to get the GT Elite Light Cockpit and the ERS2 Racing seat. And then for all drivers, they're in with a shot for the NLR Wheel Stand 2.0 if you participate in at least 10 races during season 23. Furthermore, we are powered by Aztec, who is going to give these wonderful boots for the shortest combined qualifying time, and pure sim gear with either a pair of gloves or socks for the most fastest laps and poles combined, for which it looks like Funky is doing a pretty good job at that. Furthermore, a mystery shirt box, the mystery sim box to the winner of the driver's ranking. If we look at the driver's ranking, let's see if we can find that real quick so I can let you know who is currently leading that. The weekly rankings is what we are looking at. And the current leader of that is Timo Geurts, who is in one of the other levels. I believe he's in P1 tier, but in 2nd place we find Funky, and Nick is also there in P5 with Rachman P8 and Golston P9. So we have quite a few drivers from our tiers that are in there, but Funky will need to take 1 extra spot if he wants to get that mystery shirt box. Furthermore, powered by Vespertine and ERT, who also provides the ERT Going Gets Tough Award, this nice t-shirt which every driver has a chance to win if they attend all races, finish outside the top 3, and complete all pre- and post-race interviews. And then finally we have SimGrid and the Mental Health Foundation. That was our word from our sponsors. And in the meantime, if I switch over, I see that our drivers are have loaded in. Quali has started, nobody has left yet. But we are going to go to the game action here as I'm going to tab over so you guys can see what's going on. We'll put up the details so we have a bit more information to see. We have the full track map here. This detail we do not know. We need to know the fastest lap, of course. We have 14 drivers for tonight. So we find Giggle, Jess, Ghost, Caden, new driver, Doc, Shelby, Ols, Truth, Funky, Fuzzy Bear, Matthias, Mason, Hookie, Giacomundo, and Nick. And out of these, Funky, Ols, and Matthias will not be participating in quali. What they'll be doing is they'll drive an outlap to load their setups in, but they're not allowed to participate in qualifying due to that grid penalty they get for changing the engine, which again, as mentioned, is mandatory. Now we're loading in. We see a few drivers on the track already. The driver leading that is Hookie, so we can go watch Hookie. There he is. As in the meantime, I will be able to give you some information on the track we're at tonight. Spa-Francorchamps, located in the Ardennes region in Belgium. The longest track on the circuit, 7 kilometers long and 4 meters extra. Nowadays, if tracks want to get their FIA grading done, their track needs to be under 7 kilometers. So it is unlikely that that longest track is going to be beaten from what is on the calendar. The only thing that Spa has to watch out for is that they've only been able to get 1-year deals so far because they're struggling a bit financially. So let's hope that this track can stay on the calendar for a very, very long time, because this is one of the most epic driver tracks you have on the calendar. Lap record held still by Valtteri Bottas. Lap he set in 2018, a 1:46.287. Although we'll see our drivers likely go quicker today here in quali. Distance to turn 1 after start, 271 meters. Medium downforce track with 2 DRS zones. One after turn 4, which is after the world famous Eau Rouge and Radiola to be exact. So down the Camel Straight you will have your DRS, and then finally after turn 19, which is the bus stop chicane, the start finish straight, you will also have DRS. Meantime, we see Hookie on this Camel Straight going straight towards Le Cam, and once he is there, his first sector is 30.0. That is what we will be looking out for. That is the information we want to know. Lastly, also not unimportant to mention is the pit lane time loss, because we're going to see 2 pit stops today, is 17.4 seconds. So that is what you need to know. And we also see Rachman coming in to the YouTube chat, mentioning that races doesn't make fun if you have no Wi-Fi. That does play a big part, because Nick is there, so he is going to lose his 2nd place in the championship most likely. Well, if there's one DNF, then he's already going to lose that spot. Meantime, Hookie, purple sector, but of course the first driver on track, 1:14 so far. Let's go on board with him and see what he can do through Warts, or through Stavolo, as we're heading into the bus stop chicane. This is the scene of the 1998 incident with Schumacher and Coulthard. When there was pouring rain, Schumacher was going to lap Coulthard. Coulthard went out of the way, Schumi didn't see him, they hit each other, and it was a DNF there. And it's now Hookie with the first lap, 1:43.3 as mentioned, quite a bit quicker already than the lap record. But we will see that a lot in quali, as Caden sets a 1:44.9. Most drivers are currently on their fast laps. A few are still on their out laps. Funky and Jess are still in the pits. As we see a yellow flag, that is one of the Mercedes drivers, but it's Ols, of course, slowing down to make sure that nothing happens. Giacomundo, in the meantime, has been disqualified, so I think we're going to see a restart, as Nick has now set the fastest lap time by quite a bit, a 1:42.7. Great lap for him. So we're now on board with O'Dog Shelby entering the final sector, heading towards the bus stop chicane, the final corners, until he reaches the start-finish line. Matthias has actually set a lap. That is not allowed. Matthias has gone for an engine swap, so he was not supposed to set a lap time. Curious to see what the stewards think about that, as the dog Shelby in the meantime slots himself into a P5 with a 143.7. We're going to look out and see if we can find Giggle, who has invalidated, and then finally Fozzie Bear, who's now in sector 2, but in the first sector already dropped 3/10 to Hooky. And let's see, we had a 114. I'm not entirely sure how much that was. Let's see if Fozzie has a little bit of a better second sector here. Coming through that now. He's at 15.2, so he's slightly off the pace that what Hooky has, so likely he'll be splitting Mason and Caden for a P8, at least for the time being. Round Stavelo, good speed there, using most of his ERS. 325 he peaks as he brakes for the bus stop chicane, taking quite a bit of curb, going on the throttle a little bit later than you would have wanted to, and he sets a 143.6, so does make up quite a bit of time in that final sector, and it's only 3/10 short of Hooky, currently P4 for Fozzie. Also, our drivers now on their out laps or on their way to the pits. The only driver who isn't doing that is Jess. So we're going to get the broadcast view of that as she makes her way down the Camel Straight and into Lecombs. So turn 5, 6, Lecombe. Turn 7 here is Malmedy, which is named after the nearby village of Malmedy. 2 corners here actually named after nearby towns. Although the second I'll have to mention for you in the race, because I currently cannot see my full notes in that sense. Still though, by far not the most famous corners that you have here at the legendary track of Spa-Francorchamps. La Source Hairpin turn 1, most notably Eau Rouge and Radio turns 3 and 4, where we see, I think that is a dog Shelby currently go through, as he's now on Camel Straight. And of course, finally, Stavelo and the bus stop chicane, your final corners. 19 corners in total on this Spa-Francorchamps track. In the meantime, Jess making her way into the third sector. So she's going to be setting up for a lap in a moment's notice. As we see, Giggle has also gone out. He invalidated in his first run, so he's going to be coming out again. They do come out, he does come out fairly early, so I'm not sure that's because the track is just that long that you can't afford to stay in the pits for too long, or if there's going to be any rain coming out. I don't think that is going to be the case, or no, it's just a view. Alright, let's go on board with Jess. She makes her way into La Source Hairpin. It's a little bit wider, early on the throttle, so can take a lot of speed heading in towards the nameless turn 2. And towards Eau Rouge and Radion. So first Eau Rouge left, right up is Radion. And then you now find your way into the Camel Straight. Very high top speed for Jess. 343 is the top that she hit. 30.4 sector. So a couple tenths off the pace of the first sector that we saw set. Making our way down the most tricky section of the track, downwards braking, and then this left-hander, even though it's quite fast, is a corner where you can easily distract yourself and crash your car, as we saw, I believe, Lance Stroll do, and it was also one of the Alpines in the race in Belgium this year. I believe it was Ocon who almost fully crashed out his car there and took a little bit of boarding with him. Now heading towards the end of Sector 2, we found Fozzie Bear with a 15.2. Jess is currently at a 15.5, so a couple tenths slower than Fozzie Bear, but should still be en route towards the lap that John Mason has set. So John, looking at a provisional P8 for the time being. She makes her way into the bus stop chicane. Taking quite a bit of curb here, but that is what you should do. Maximizing her pace and coming across the line with a 144.1 So slots herself up in P9 for the time being. Then some drivers have started their laps. Ghost has just started this lap. Hookie was already on it. Let's see what Hookie can do. He was 6 tenths off pole, at least for the time being. And the first sector is already 2.5 tenths up on his own lap time. So very good first sector for Hookie. Possibly the fastest sector that we've seen so far, although I'm curious to see what Nick can do in a moment's notice. Coming around the slower section of the track, the fast left-hander now. And doesn't make any... Oh, he does make a mistake there. Picks up track limits, and that is lap gone for Hookie. So we'll have to come into the pit straight off, so he can at least make sure he has enough laps to drive. There's 7 minutes remaining, so he should be able to go for 2 more time points. Now we are on board with our current provisional pole holder, as we see Giggle set his first lap time 42.9, very good lap time. Nick 2 tenths down to Hookie in the first sector, but is almost a tenth up on his own lap. So it shows that perhaps he's going for a little bit more downforce compared to the max top speed, because the top speed is what you'll have quite a lot of in Sector 1. But in Sector 2, you can make up a lot more time if your traction is that much better. And it looks like Nick is indeed swinging through the track a little bit easier. Now coming through Puhan, lifting enough, taking a little bit of curb, but not going to take all too much risk there, which is the best thing you can do. Hug the inside curb here. Slightly wide off the left-hander. Does not pick up track limits, fortunately. And now we find him a little quicker again. Purple Sector 2, that must be the fastest sector that we've seen so far here on the qualifying today. Making his way around the final section, as Ghost has leapfrogged Giggle in the meantime. So the Aston Martins in P2 and P3, but Nick wants to go one quicker, and Nick is going to slightly overshoot the final bus stop chicane. Can he go a little bit quicker though? Can he go quicker? He does. It's only 43 thousandths of a second, but he is quicker. 1:42.726 is your current pole time. See if we have some more drivers on a fast lap. John not on a fast lap either. Caden is on a fast lap, 7 tenths up on his own lap time. He's going to make quite a big jump, a 1:43.8, so puts himself in front of Truth and Jez. Remember, Funky and Ols will not be setting lap times because they have the engine penalty. What happens to Matthias, we will have to see in the chat later on. And the one driver that I can go on board with now to give you a little bit of view as we calm down a little bit to enjoy the sounds is a Doc Shelby, who's currently on his outlap. It's very nice hearing that car go into Puhan, taking so much speed through it. Remember, this is a corner that you go not flat out anymore, but 280 kilometers you make around that left-hander. That's a crazy amount of speed, if you come to think of it. One of the most exciting corners to drive, aside from, of course, Eau Rouge and Radio. Now making his way down the back stretch. He's going to be setting himself up for a lap in a moment's notice. Now what we're going to do is we are going to go on board with a Doc Shelby, as he's going to drive his second run. And seeing how much time we have left, he likely has no more time for another lap, because we have 3 minutes 40 on the clock. So this lap will have to count. Slightly overshoots there, but can get a good exit, making his way down towards Eau Rouge and Radio. Can pick up track limits there. Remember, this corner is flat out. Almost 300 kilometers an hour that he can get through there. So he makes his way down the Camel Straight. First sector is actually quite a bit off. Hasn't been using his ERS. So he's going for a second warm-up lap, is what Doc Shelby is doing. Because, yeah, as we mentioned, he does not have the time to go for 2 quick runs. He does seem to be going around the track fairly quickly, though. And now he's finally slowing down. So yeah, that is what it was. Fozzie Bear in the meantime has started his final lap time. And there he comes down. Look at that, 295, the lowest speed recorded, but going in there with 315 as now down the long back straight. DRS enabled. Can he get the same amount of top speed that we saw Jazz have earlier on? There was 343, and it's the exact same for Fozzie Bear, currently a 10th down on his own lap. But remember, the most time here is to gain on the second sector. First sector is not all that much time that you can gain, only if you have a setup for more top speed, and of course through the Lesueur's hairpin, where you can make up some time. So we have yellow in front, which is from Hooky, but that is not too interesting for us because he's just on a slow lap, and Fozzie Bear has abandoned. He realizes that he can go again in a moment, and his first sector was not quite good enough. So quite a few drivers abandoning their fast laps. And I think O'Dog Shelby's now the first to really start his lap. This time ERS is enabled. Oh, look at that, 300 kilometers an hour through Eau Rouge. A very good line that he had even up into Radion. For slightly, well, it's almost the same top speed. Slightly quicker, 18 thousandths of a second. Currently up on his own time. But as we just mentioned, Sector 2 is where you can gain most of that time. The tricky downward section where it's so easy to outbrake yourself, and also very easy here to pick up track limits. No track limits for O'Dog Shelby. Good job so far, making his way into Puha. 264 on the speedometer there. Final 3 corners before he rounds off Sector 2. Time we're going for is somewhere in the 114s. At least that is what Nick was able to do. The O'Dog Shelby does that too, a 114.6. So I think he lost a little bit of time in the final sector because his sector time is almost 6-7 tenths quicker than Fozzie Bear was. And Fozzie Bear is a 10th up on him. So I think O'Dog Shelby might have overshot the bus stop chicane last time round and could go for a really fast lap and might even contest Ghost and Giggle. Not sure if he can beat Nick's lap time, but now here he is. Comes across the line, a 43.3, so indeed making up 4 tenths in that final sector, and a P6 for him for the time being, as the flag is now out. So the drivers coming through now will see their laps be finalized. Let's just look in who that other driver was, but it is Caden, who I think is coming into the pits. I don't think it was Truth, no. But the first driver that will be coming across will be Fozzie Bear. Was 16 thousandths up in the first sector, so doing a little bit better there. Sector 2, much better. 5 tenths quicker. Fozzie Bear also on his way to contest John here, who has put himself in P5 with a 43.1. And quite a few drivers are still on their fast lap, so pole lap time can still be beaten here. Coming through the bus stop chicane. Good speed through it, maximizing his track positioning there. 43.0, a P5 for Fozzie Bear. As you see, one of our drivers come into the pits, but we first have Hooky coming across. Hooky sets himself up for P2, 43.794. Now it's Jess coming across, 43.6, goes to P9. Now we have the Aston Martins. It's Ghost with a provisional pole lap time of 42.6. Here comes Giggle. Giggle does a 42.8, so slightly quicker. And then we just have O'Dog Shelby, who is a validated, and finally Nick. Nick is 2 tenths quicker. Nick goes to pole of 42.409, 2 tenths quicker than his competition. So was already P3 in the championship, actually shared P2 together with Rageman. And now with a pole position here, sets himself up to take a big bite out of that lead that Funky has. Funky having to start at the back of the grid because of that engine penalty. And Nick setting himself up great here with a pole position. Ghost finds himself in P2, Hooky P3, and Giggle in P4. As for Matthias, we'll have to see if he actually took that engine penalty, because on socials I saw that he took the engine penalty. But if he indeed did, he's not supposed to be there. So I'll have to see if anything changes there. But here we have our full classification. So Nick, P1. Then it's Ghost, Hooky, Giggle, Matthias, Fozzie Bear, John Mason, P7. Odok, Shelby, Jess, and Caden making his debut here, rounding off top 10. P11 we found Truth. Ols took penalty, so engine penalty, so no lap. Same for Funky. And Jackamundo got disqualified, for which I think we'll have to restart the lobby, because that didn't seem like it should be happening. So here we have everything. I'll leave it on the screen for you for the time being, as we're going to be moving out and to the welcome screen for a moment. So we have some time to look at everything that is going to be happening. And I have to dive into the chat as well to see whether we are going to be starting or if we won't, if we have to go for a restart. I don't see any mentions of a restart, so that is good. It does give me a little bit of time to scroll down and have the full names of the corners in front of me. So we're currently waiting for drivers. Here's our in-game view again, so we can see everything. We have a warm-up lap, so we have a little bit of time to relax. And for me, that means I have some time to pour myself a drink so that I don't run a voice by the end of the stream today. Had some issues with that a few weeks ago, but we are all good again. It was last week, actually. It was last week. So currently still waiting for players. 14 drivers on the start-finish line here of Spa-Francorchamps, the Belgian Grand Prix, the ERT of Belgium. 3 drivers, as far as I know, with the engine penalties. And the lights go green, meaning that our drivers have some time to warm up their tires and go around. So in about 2 minutes, we'll see our race start. 22 laps, 2 mandatory pit stops. Let's have a look at the tires that our drivers are starting on. So it is split between soft and mediums. Mostly softs, if I see real quick. So 6 on mediums and 8 on the softs. Our soft runners being Nick, pole position, Hooky, P3, P5 all the way through P9 on soft. So that's Matthias, Fozzie Bear, John Mason, Odok, Shelby, and Jess. And finally P14 softs, Jackamundo. Our medium runners, Ghost in P2, Giggle in P4. So both the Aston Martins going for the same strategy, as well as spot 10 to 13. So Caden, Truth, Ols, and Funky. Let's get some more data enabled. So the telemetry we will not show. So no, well, we'll show the ERS because that is important for us to know. Penalty is important later on. Stops also later on. Position changes is what we will want to see at the start of the race. So now these are the drivers that we have tonight. We are missing our P2 in the standings, Reachman. But that is because he mentioned earlier on that he had some Wi-Fi issues. So that is not great for him. In the meantime, we have 2 drivers disqualified. Did they just stay at the start-finish line? I think they did. They'll probably just reset them anyways. And if they don't, well, then we need to restart. But since Giggle now mentioned what was that, I think we will have to go for a restart. Not entirely sure what's happened. Did they make contact by any chance? I don't think they did. But they tried to overtake. I'm not sure. Anyways, we're going to see what will be happening. No, it doesn't matter. Giggle says there go my tire temperatures, so it's just a warm-up that they're going to miss. Mattia is apologizing for it, so there'll likely be a steward's inquiry to that towards the end of the race, as Nick will now have to go past the drivers there and then slot himself in for P1. This is going to be hard for the drivers in P2 and P3, so Hooky and Ghost will have a... no, there's Ghost enabled, so that helps a lot. Hooky now with a very aggressive line in the box. All drivers so far slotting it nicely. Have done some practice on that end. So as all of our drivers are ready, we're gonna see the lights come on. Oh. Truth moved. What is going on? Oh, his game glitched. Okay. Wow. That was one of the most interesting starts I've seen so far. I've seen one driver in the grid before. But seeing one just randomly take off before the lights even pop on, that's even more interesting. We have one of our drivers in the meantime on Discord asking about a restart. I think that might be a wise thing to do. In the end, it is up to our game host to decide that tonight. That is Jess. The race still is not starting, and we go to another loading screen. It's just truth that we're currently waiting for. Slightly different view. So I am not entirely sure what will be happening. We'll leave this screen on, at least for the time being. Ols has got black screen. I think we'll have to go for a lobby restart. So let's go back to the lobby view that we have for you. Not this one, of course. It is this one. So we can look at the tires that will be used tonight. So the C4, C3, and C2 tires. We already saw most of our drivers starting on the softs and 6 drivers starting on those C3 mediums. And we now do have a race. We have our lights coming on, but migrating host, so we are going to restart. Yeah, we have a lobby restart, so we can go back. The drivers have gone underway, but I think they will have to realize that they will need to start again, but some drivers have already gone out, so we can go back to the main menu and wait for that lobby restart, or new lobby to be made. So I have a bit of time to relax, a little bit of time to chat. Yeah, for Matthias as well, he'll have to start at the back of the grid. Indeed, had that engine penalty. So that is correct. So we did see that well earlier on. But now in the meantime also gives us a little bit of time to go over the other information that we have, because there's always a lot to talk about with these races. For example, the pre-race interviews that we do have. Let's see if we can find one of our drivers here. Scroll all the way down and then go back up. So we have Ols mentioning that this is one of his favorite tracks. Has done some practice for in case there's a wet race. So Spa is one of the shortest pit time losses. We mentioned this before, is 17.5 seconds, 17.4 to be precise. So he is thinking about an alternative strategy. He's also mentioning that the slipstream is very powerful here, but yeah, they can't play together because his teammate isn't there tonight. So that is for his pre-race interview. And then we have Rachman. He says, can we skip this? He's not very happy to drive here, but yeah, unfortunately couldn't come out tonight due to those Wi-Fi issues. These are some of our P2 and P1 drivers. Funky Dan, championship leader, he likes it. It's quite easy to overtake here. He's praying for a dry race though, so hopefully no rain. No alternative strategy. He's not quite sure about the setup. Of course, has gotten that sorted now. And also says, yeah, it depends whether they're going to go for some strategies in the lap time and qualifying. But yeah, he didn't have to because he had that engine penalties to serve. In the meantime, I'm refreshing. Don't have an invite just yet. Alright, I'm just waiting for the invite here so that we can join the new lobby. I think they're waiting for us at the time being. In the meantime, then, our rivalries. The rivalry that we have going on. Let's see, who was it this time? There's actually no mentions of this, so we do not have to go over the rivalries. Drivers' press conference then. So, yeah, Richmond said the target is to give Funky a challenge for the title. He mentions, well, hopefully it's the target. Funky's a very fast guy, so I need everything. Well, that internet really throwing into play there. And then for Trunders, this was actually a race ago, so there's no more information going on about that. Then our driver of the day interviews. Driver of the day last time around, let's see, was Rachman. He says a cracking drive from yourself to finish P5 from P10 the grid. Do you feel that was the best you could do today, or was there potentially more in the tank? He said, I forgot to load a setup at the restart, so yes, there could have been more. So Richmond having a pretty good race last time around. Post-race interviews then. Let's go over Hookie. How they go out there today was our first question. Hookie mentioning that it could have been a lot better. He did not manage to hit his pre-race targets, and the weather, that it was sunny, was happy with that. Now about Spa, he says we'll see. Forget a good running there, and the race that he's looking forward to the most is Silverstone, which we are going to see in not too long from now. If we look at our calendar, we still have Spain and Singapore in between, but then Silverstone is round 11. So on the 29th of October, exactly 4 weeks from now, we'll be driving at Silverstone. Then for Jamie, he mentioned that he was glad there was no broadcast last week around because it went pretty bad. Did not hit his target, says hell no, to emphasize on that. And let's see, for Spa, yeah, he's on a holiday, so he won't be there today. And he's looking forward to the ERT of Spain, so Barcelona, which we'll have in 2 weeks' time. In the meantime, I have gotten my invite, so I am going to go back into the lobby. And I am back in, so now we'll just have to wait for the lobby to be ready before we can get started. I'll go over some more post-race interviews, so we have a few more things to talk about before we're gonna get started. And let's see, we talked about Bulls already. This new. Who else do we have? And yeah, Funky, we mentioned him a little bit before, but he said went pretty well with a P2. Did not manage to hit his pre-race targets, and it was luckily quite sunny for him how the weather treated him. He's looking forward to Spa, and his favorite tracks are Kota, so the Circuit in the Americas, and Silverstone, and those are also our final 2 rounds of the season. So if the standings don't get a little bit closer going into 2 of his favorite tracks as the final 2 rounds, looks like it'll be very, very hard to beat Funky this season. Already has that 55-point gap, 147 points of the 92 points of both Rachman and Nick, of which Rachman is also absent today. And Nick has already missed 2 races. Rachman had already missed 1, which was our first race, so in Qatar, and now missing his second, as we mentioned before. And then Ghost, finally. It went well for Ghost. He managed to get pole and finished 3rd in the race. He was hoping for a top 5, so he exceeded his targets. I was happy that the weather was dry. And he mentioned that he likes Singapore, so in 3 weeks he's going to have the track that he likes the most. Let's see, what has also been mentioned is that the weather has been set to dynamic, so it could potentially see a swap of weather compared to what we saw earlier on. Of course, our quali was dry. The race seemingly looked to start dry, but we might have something else going on there. So we will find out about that later. Then let's go over our stewards briefing, so we have some time to mention. So welcome to one of the most iconic circuits in the world, Spa-Francorchamps. This circuit is truly one of a kind, the longest track on the calendar, which has been the set piece for some of the most historic moments in racing. This combination of long high-speed sections and more downforce reliant Sector 2, drivers have multiple choices of which way they prefer their cars. So more top speed, more downforce. And as always with Spa, you cannot forget about the risk of changing conditions. Let's see. Last race, there were 3 reports in P3 tier. So Matthias got a 5-second penalty last race, and Trunders a 10-second penalty, both for causing a collision with Hookie. Let's see, there's some interesting track notes here. Not all that much. So that rounds off the stewards briefing. The stewards results we have now also mentioned. So we have gone over all the information that you need to know. We've covered the weekly rankings, the interviews, the drivers of the day, conferences, and the post-race interviews from last time out. We are now all set to go to Spa, and then we will be on our way. In the meantime, this week we also had a Sat passing, so I want to quickly give a shout out to that, because in some way he is a little bit linked to the racing world. Most people know him as Dumbledore, others know him because of the legendary corner named after him on the Top Gear test track. Of course, speaking of Michael Gambon. So I can only say rest in peace, and I wish I give my condolences to his family. Wish them some happiness in this sadness through these tough times. Now with that shout, I will be changing our overlays again so you can see the track information. In the meantime, we are waiting to get ready because we have all of our drivers in our lobby. So that is good to see. And the restrictions have been updated, so settings are currently still being changed. And once that is fully done, we're going to be loading into our race for tonight. So the warm-up lap actually has been disabled because of the glitch that we saw earlier on. So that means we're going to go straight to the 5 red lights and then start our 22 laps on the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Also is asking for 2 minutes, so we will be waiting a little bit longer before we're going to get this race out of the way. In the meantime, I will have some time to tell you which other nearby village that is that has a corner named after it. We already mentioned corner 7, Malmedy, which was named after a nearby village. And then finally we have Stavelo. So just before Blanchimont, which is also named after a nearby village. So turn 14. Turn 14 is of course just before the end of the second sector, and then turn 15 coming after that is the curve Paul Frere. Turn 16, 17, Blanchimont, the fast left-handers, and then bus stop chicane corners 18 and 19. What do we forget? We forget the right-left combination after Pouhon, that is Lefagne, the corner where we mentioned some incidents this time around in the race in Belgium that we saw a couple months ago, but also in qualifying the place for track limits, which is Speaker's Corner, and in between Speaker's Corner and Malmedy turn 8 we find the corner Rivage, also referred to as Bruxelles at times. But Rivage, a bit more iconic, so I will go with Rivage on that end. That means you have your track info. In the meantime, we are loading in, so I will also be switching our overlay because we are going to get ready for the race here tonight. Remember, 22 laps, 2 mandatory pit stops, and a pole position for our driver. Second in the standings, shared second, and that is Nick. Still waiting for Giggle to load in. We also had a note, so Matthias will not be starting from P5. He'll have to slot at the back of the grid because he did have to take that engine penalty. It looks to be very dry, and I think a lot of drivers are going to be happy with that. Because this is a track where you can easily get a lot of rain. But nothing that they should be worried about, at least for the time being. We do have dynamic weather, so weather can change. The formation lap is off. And the drivers can ready up in a moment's notice. We see the AlphaTauri of Hockey bouncing in the left side of the screen, just on the left side edge. So that looks pretty funny. Now it's stopped. I think they heard us. And there we go. Our lights come on. 3, 4, and 5 lights. And we are on our way with a great start for Nick. Definitely getting the best start out there. So already see some swap for places at the back, with most notably Funky picking up a few places. Hockey has retaken the position from Giggle. Let's now make our way into Eau Rouge and Radial. We'll get our information enabled so we can see all that we need to know. 2 positions gained for Giacomundo, Matthias. Truth also 2 positions gained and 1 place gained for Adok Shelby. So we make our way down to Camel Straight, and it is Giggle going with an inside move onto Hookey. And he is going to make that stick, so Giggle puts himself in front of Hookey there. Truth also having a really good start on his part. 3 positions gained already. Jazz has dropped 3 positions, and it's now Funky who's picked up a couple extra positions. He finds himself in P10. Let's see. We have a yellow flag in the meantime. That is a virtual safety car. And it looks like, I think it's Caden who was involved with that. There's no damage. Is there damage for... Yeah, we have John Mason missing his front wing. So I think there was an incident and contact between him and Caden, because they have dropped the most positions so far. And with a virtual safety car, this could be a good moment to go for your first stop. Switch to the hards, and then later on in the race, go for the mediums and immediately serve one of your pit stops. So I think we'll have a few drivers go inside for that. The tires... actually slightly different to what we saw earlier on. We had 6 runners on the mediums. Now we only have 5 with Ols, Funky, Giacomundo, and Ghost. So I think it's... No, Giggle who made the switch from medium to soft, because most of our Aston Martin runners were on the medium tires. Meantime, the race has resumed, however, so I don't think anyone will be coming in aside from John, who has that broken front wing, but also Funky coming into the pit. So let's see what he can do, as we saw Caden go a little bit wide there with another yellow flag here. John, in the meantime, couldn't go into the pits because of that, so that has quite screwed up his race. So we're now on board with Funky. Also has to get his front wing changed, so he was involved in some contact. And he has switched his tires. I assume that can be... No, it's actually for the softs. I would expect him to go for the hards there. He has not made that switch, as we now look at Nick, who is still leading the pack 7 tenths towards next competitor. That is Ghost, but Ghost will want to stay within DRS range, so that next lap down Camel Straight, he might be able to make a move. Meantime, Giggle has dropped back a little bit, 1.7 seconds behind, but actually a lot of the gaps are fairly big. The only gap that is very, very small is one between Truth and Odok Shelby, as we go on board with Truth, hunting down that P6 of Odok Shelby, almost picking up track limits there. Odok Shelby in front of him. T is also very close to Jess, as we see Odok Shelby slightly overshoot there. I think with some ERS, he wants to use it. He could go for an overtake on Odok Shelby. He has the better line coming through Stavelo and going through the curve. Paul Frere is using that ERS indeed, so he wants to go for that overtake. Can he put it inside, going into Blanche Shimon? He does. He's given enough space by Odok Shelby, but can he still go for a late dive? No, he is going to decide against that. But maybe Matthias is going to do that onto Jess. Does go on the inside and makes a clean move past Jess. And Matthias finds himself into P9. Remember, started the back of the grid after that engine penalty, and has already made up significant amount of places. Let's go on board with Ghost. because after Radion here has a chance to overtake, DRS has been enabled, used quite a bit of ERS already, but I think for now can only close that gap, look to close that gap and not go for an overtake here. But it will be a lot easier for him to stay closer. Hookie hasn't looked down the inside. He's not going to go for the overtake onto Giggle, as Truth has made a move stick onto Shelby, has he? He has indeed. Doc Shelby actually dropping back quite a bit. Now John has come in for his first pit. That is of course something he wanted to do last lap around, but couldn't because his path was a little blocked there. Aside from that, the gaps are slightly increasing. Only 3 drivers within DRS zone as Giacomundo now picks up a time penalty for track limits, picking that up in Pujon here in lap 3. In the meantime, I want to have a better look at Hookie and later on also Ghost and Nick as we have another yellow flag. That is Giacomundo. I think he spun out. Might have hit the wall there, but has he picked up damage? As it comes around Stavolo, we should be able to see that. He does not have any front wing damage as far as I can see. So that is the good news. The bad news is that he's lost quite a few places there. Meantime, we have Hookie very close to Giggle, and I think he'll be looking to go for the overtake. But is he already going to do that here, or is he going to wait? He is going to look down the inside, but he wants to stay behind because the DRS line comes a little later. The DRS line right over there. So he's past the action point behind Giggle, meaning he can use the DRS zone down the Camel Straight and go for the overtake. Goes around the outside and a little bit of teleporting going on there. That is not making his life easier, but he does get the overtake done onto Giggle as he now slots himself into P3, so has regained that position from the start, but quite a gap now towards goals, 2.8 seconds, so quite a mountain for him to overcome. Ghost finds himself still 3/10s behind Nick. Let's go on board with him as he dives into Pujon. Slightly wide there for Nick in that Ferrari. He's losing quite a bit of time to Ghost now. Gap down to just under 2/10s. Ghost seems to have a little bit of a better line there. The softs still have a bit of life in them. Should at least still have a little bit of time in life in them. As Ghost does take a little bit more curve there. And cannot already get quite close as we head into Blanchimont. Meantime, Caden also picking up a 3-second time penalty in that Alpine for track limits. Ghost now getting awfully close. Already going out of the slipstream a little bit because he doesn't want to be too close. And I think we're going to see him do the same thing that Hookie did last lap onto Giggle. Use the DRS on the start-finish straight to keep the gap close. And then on Camel Straight, go for that overtake. You need to have a good exit here. Has the better exit compared to Nick. So this should be all smooth sailing for him as he makes his way through Eau Rouge and Radion. And there we have him. DRS enabled. Overtake enabled. He wants to make that move stick, but where is he going to go? Is it the inside or the outside? He's actually too far behind to go for an overtake. So good defending on ERS with Nick. He's used most of his ERS now in order to defend. He only has 11% left as Ghost has 43%. So it's only a matter of time before Ghost is going to take that lead from Nick. Definitely having the better pace there on the medium set of compounds, and he already is looking to overtake him as he comes around Speaker's corner. Doc Shelby also picking up 3 seconds time penalty for track limits. As we go back on board with Ghost, who is slowly but surely closing that gap towards Nick. Also good to note, Funky is fairly quickly closing the gap towards Caden. So Funky seems to have pretty good pace. And with that early pit stop, we'll have to see how his strategy is going to be coming out in the end, but I think he will likely be hoping for some safety car sessions this time around, because if there is a safety car, he could just go for mediums and go for a late run on softs, because he has 3 sets of softs available to him. This is now his 2nd set, so he has an extra set of soft tires remaining. Ghost now coming closer, closer, closer. Does he want to go for the overtaking move here? Remember, you do not want to go for the overtake here, because that means you're going to get overtaken again when you're down at the Camel Straight. Means that we have some pits coming in for Hooky and Fuzzy Bear, deciding that their softs are done after 5 laps. But look how close Ghost is. He is all the way down the rear of Nick. He surely will be going for the overtake now. There's no way for Nick to defend this. Ooh, very, very close. Almost on the grass. But Ghost does make that move stick. Nick really giving him minimum track space there, but it's just enough to go for the overtake. We saw Ghost hesitate there a little bit because the space was almost not there, but thankfully no incident there, and does make the move stick. Matthias now has closed the gap down to Truth. Remember, Matthias started all the way down from the back. He's already in P5, having some amazing race pace here, so I think he will be one of the drivers to really watch out for tonight, because he still could make a bid, perhaps even for a top step on the podium. Is 10 seconds down though to those main drivers, and will look to get past Truth as quickly as possible. Has a lot of ERS to his disposal, 60% more than Truth right in front of him, and I think Matthias will be looking to use some of that as he is going to make his way through Blanchimont in a moment's notice. Coming around turn 14, that's Stavilo. And yeah, look at that. Just with the exit, has so much more pace there. Skaden's picked up another time penalty for track limits. Can you go outside, inside? Tries to go around the outside here, Blanchimont, but I think he wants to stay behind and then go for a dive. Oh, multiple warnings and also track limits for him. But that was very, very close. And they're both going to go in. They're both going to go in for a pits. We also have Nick coming in for his new fresh set of tires. That is probably a good decision from him to make. Let's see how the pit stops go. Truth first, coming out very quickly. Is he going to come out back in front of that Haas? He will be. He's going to keep the position over him, over Matthias. And they're going to be coming out behind Giacomundo. So out of the people that stopped, Hooky is very close to Nick. So it looks like his pit stop was well timed, because he's made up quite a bit of time towards him. Has gone a little bit of a gap over Giggle as well, so has made that easier. Fozzie Bear finds himself in P6, and yet Truth and Matthias will have some overtaking to do later on in the race, as Truth comes quite close to Giacomundo there. Yeah, Giacomundo on those old tires will not be going on for that much longer here. Meantime, Funky is also not too far behind the drivers up in front who have just made their pits. But Funky likely will have to go for his pit stop fairly soon as well. And there comes Truth having a look down the inside. Just knows he can't make the move stick there. So he's going to wait a little bit longer and then go for the overtake. But he is very close, and so is Nick. Nick looking to overtake Ols. But yeah, this is for track position, but not really strategy-wise, because Ols on a different strategy. Nick already made that pit stop and goes around the outside of Blanchimont, even showing how much more pace he's got there. And Truth has now overtaken Giacomundo. Almost going 3-man wide in there. Matthias and Giacomundo are there. Matthias looking to have a move onto both of them as well. Trying to go around the outside. Very late braking by Matthias. But now with a shorter line there. A little bit of contact there with Truth. But he has the DRS now. Gonna use that DRS to slow. Do not touch. Just does not touch. And we have a yellow flag in sector 1 and 3. Perhaps just a driver going outside the track. I don't see anything else happening there, as Hooky also got the overtake onto Ols done. But yeah, Ols still having to make that pit stop. But let's see what Matthias can do now. He's going to be using quite a bit of that ERS. Will want to dispatch Truth as fast as he can. Gonna go down the inside and makes his way through Lacombe and is ahead. Now P7 for Matthias. But this technically is a P5 because... No, P6, sorry. Because even though Ols and Ghost still have to stop, Ghost will still end up in front of him. Nick has decreased the gap towards Ghost already a little bit, so when Ghost does come into the pits, he will have a few seconds to make up, but because he started on the mediums, he will likely be switching to softs later on, so I think it would be a good idea for Ghost is to, well, go for another set of medium compounds after this, and then perhaps the final 5 laps he wants to run on the softs. That could be the strategy for him, but it shows he's on 7-lap-old tires. Has he gone inside then? He shouldn't have been. Hasn't. But the tires are 8 laps old, and we are now in... No, okay, then it's all correct. All correct, because we didn't have the warm-up lap. That is why it's a little bit different tonight. Giggle now very close to Ols, but yeah, Ols has come into the pits, deciding that 8 laps is enough on these mediums, but I think we're going to see some more drivers come in. Jackamundo perhaps, but I think Funky and Caden will be coming in for sure. And Funky decides to go on. And for Caden, he is gonna come in. Probably the better decision that he can make here. Then Hookie actually within DRS range of Nick. So his strategy so far working out quite well. Even though his laps, or his tires are a lap older than Nick. He has managed to close that gap quite a bit. So definitely going inside the right moment. So showing that the soft slide is only 5 laps here. Further down the field, the gaps have increased quite a bit. So the thing that we will be looking out for is what can Ghost do? When is Ghost going to be coming in for his first pit stop? I think he'll be coming in fairly shortly because tire life should be down at its end unless he wants to go a little bit longer on the mediums now so he can go for a double soft run. We'll have to cook something special up though, because this is not going to be an easy race for him. And he indeed does not come in yet, so we could perhaps see him not use the medium tires anymore for the rest of this race, for the remainder, and just go for softs twice if he has enough soft tires left to at least do that with. But Nick has already decreased that gap quite a bit. Remember, this was 4 laps ago. It was 17.5 seconds. Now it's 12.5 seconds. So the newer tires definitely having a lot more pace there. And Nick now starting to lose quite a bit of time because of it. Hookie, though, is getting closer and closer to Nick, seemingly having the best race pace here. But with Nick not having the best line through Eau Rouge and Radial, is going to be coming under pressure. Remember, this is for provisional lead. Hookie goes down the inside here and makes that move stick on Camel Straight. So provisional lead is now for Hookie. Very good overtake by him, but he really has some great race pace there. We already saw Nick earlier on struggle against Ghost, who seemed to have better race pace than him. But it's also Hookie who has even better. Ooh, that was a weird line that Nick took there. Not sure if he had a little bit of a drift there, but he's already low on ERS and has been for most of the lap. And most of the race even, so he's not having an easy race so far, and now dropping outside of the DRS zone means that he won't be able to catch up and play catch up with Hookie. So aside from a great quali, it's not looking too good for him if he wants to pick up the race win here tonight, as we see Matthias has closed down the gap to Fozzie Bear. Matthias almost in P5 already from starting so far back. Having a really good strategy there. And also staying out of the carnage in lap 1 as our race leader. Ghost has now come in. Let's go on board with Ghost and see where he's going to come out. Because I think we'll find him in P4 after this. Just a couple seconds in front of Fozzie Bear. He is indeed going to go for soft tires as expected. I think he'll go for double soft runs here tonight. Giggle has now gone past 2. Yeah, inside line, slightly shorter, so it's going to come out ahead of Fozzie Bear. Only about 2.5 seconds exactly, 2.5 to 3 seconds behind Giggle. But yeah, fresher tires, softer compound, the C4s should have quite a bit more pace to go for that overtake, as Matthias is hot on Fozzie Bear's tail, and he will be going for that overtake here. Still waiting a little bit. making sure there is no contact, and it's smooth sailing down the inside. So nothing that Matthias had to worry about there. He makes himself up into P5. Only about 5 seconds away from Ghost, who was our race leader earlier on. So it shows that Matthias is not out of this yet. And I already mentioned he does like this track. And it's starting to look quite good for him. Funky, in the meantime, has made his second pit stop. So does not need to go for any stops anymore. But will likely be hoping for a late safety car that could play into his hands. And at least make it a bit easier for him to pick up some more points. Yeah, now down the field, most of our gaps have increased quite significantly. There's no driver within DRS of one another, so we're going to be go on board with Ghost, who has shrunk that gap to Giggle by 6-7 tenths already. But yeah, he just made that pit stop, so he will have that much more pace, and he will likely be setting the fastest lap time in one lap to come from now. Gap 2.7 seconds. The last lap now 1.7 seconds. Already making up a lot of time in that last corner, as Nick has now made his way almost back into the DRS of Hookie. So I'm not sure if Hookie made a mistake there, or if Nick just has that little bit of extra pace going for him. Is using all of the overtake that he has at his disposal. He is looking to get within DRS because Giggle behind him is also closing in. It's now slightly slower than his fastest first sector, but yeah, if you have DRS, then you can gain that much time. So this is not a telltale sign for him yet. I think he's going to be quite a bit quicker here in sector 2, and as mentioned, go for that fastest lap, at least for the time being. Now within 7 tenths of his teammate Giggle right in front of him. So I think we will see him go for an overtake, likely at the Camel Straight, but because Ghost has that extra bit of pace, maybe towards the bus stop chicane or start finish straight, he could already make a move stick. Because down through Stavelo and Curveball Frere can make up quite a bit of time. Gap now 6.5 tenths, using a little bit of overtake to get even closer. But now I think the safest thing for Ghost to do, and also not hurt his tires too much, is just to go for the overtake on Camel Straight and not take any risks there. Giggle, meantime, 1.4 seconds behind Nick. Nick, 1.3 behind Hookie, and a slight mistake there from Giggle coming out of the final corner. But what is Hookie going to do, or Ghost going to do, as we have a yellow, we have a virtual safety car yet again. It's Caden who has stopped on the track, and he has hit a wall. And he's stuck. Caden is stuck. This seems to be a bug. He's absolutely stuck there. His car's beached. And he has been disqualified because of it. Okay, well, not much he could do about that. Was there contact, though, with John? No, I don't think there was. But yeah, with this virtual safety car, a few drivers are coming in for their seemingly last pit stop. So it's Truth, Jess, and the dog Shelby. They'll have to make 10 laps too on those mediums, but I think they can do that. The big question is, what does Funky do? Funky is going to continue, so perhaps Funky thinking that he can go all the way to the end on these mediums. John is going to be coming in. That is a good decision on his end. As now Ghost, yeah, Ghost cannot go for an overtake here, so this does hurt his chances to make his way back through the fun. We have a full safety car. We have a full safety car, and now more drivers are going to be coming in. 100%. And I think the first driver that will be doing that is Funky. Funky will be looking to have fresher tires here. Likely not going to even lose a position because of it. Seeing the gaps that we have on the field. And yeah, our drivers that are mediums, maybe even Ghost also. All these drivers still have to come in. So might as well now do it when you are behind the safety car. And seeing the gaps that we have, especially the gap towards almost 19 seconds already, I think it's safe for pretty much everyone to go inside. But yeah, if Ghost does come in, we will have to wait for Giggle. They definitely will come in. Ooh, a little bit of a slide. But our top 3 is in the pit lane. Top 4 in the pit lane. And I think Matthias will try and do the same thing here. So everyone until Ols is going to be coming in. Fozzie Bear is likely going to follow. Truth 2. Nick has actually lost a position here. I think. No, he hasn't. He hasn't. Okay, so I'll say for him. Ghost might lose a little bit of time, but no, hasn't lost a position, so it didn't really matter that he had to wait. Ols now then likely going to be coming in. He is indeed. And the drivers that have just pitted, they are going to stay out. So Truth, Odok Shelby, and Jess are going to be staying out. No, Ols actually has come in. Well, he had to come in. Jackamundo and Funky also. And yeah, John doesn't have to go for an extra stop anymore either. Ols has actually gone for the softs. So interesting tactic from him. Jackamundo is gone for the hards. Doesn't look like the best of the compounds. And Funky has gone for the mediums. Yeah, that is kind of what you want to be going for here now. I think mediums will make it easiest to finish the end of the race. Nick actually, at the front of the field, has gone for the softs. So thinking that he can make those tires last all the way to the end of the race. So let's see if that works out for him. Safety car, I think, will be coming in the lap after this because the gaps are still quite significant. Normally at the end of this lap they would come in, but I don't think we'll be seeing that this time around. Still on board now with Hookie, who is behind that safety car, so we can have a good view of those lights. We can figure out whether we're going to be restarting straight off or not yet. If we restart a lap later, and that is going to be great news for both Ols and Nick. If we start now, they might struggle at the end for pace and for tire life. For Jackamundo on the hards, it's going to be a very tall order for him, but I think he'll just be pushing all the way, trying to just set the fastest lap times that he can do. The lights are still on. We have crossed the Sector 3 line, so that means we will have another lap behind the safety car. So safety car not coming in. Still have to wait from the drivers in 10, 11, 12, and 13 to close the gap to the safety car. But this is good news for Funky, our championship leader. He can make up some places still and give himself a little bit of extra points so that Nick doesn't come too close to him because he is currently in P2. But this extra lap also helps Nick out, so he could potentially pick up quite a few points here tonight. So one more lap behind the safety car. Jackamundo actually decided to go for another pit. I think this is a good call. You're only going to lose 2 positions here. And those hards, yeah, you really don't want to be on them now. I think if he goes for softs, he has his best bit. He still makes something work today. But he is going to go for medium, so the safer option that he is going to take. But they're 5 laps old. Okay. Interesting. They perhaps didn't have any tires left to do anything with. Although, with that disqualification he got in the qualifying session, you would imagine he'd still have some soft tires left. Going for used mediums is not going to make his life easier, especially with a penalty already being out there. A few more drivers having penalties, so let's quickly go over those. 3 seconds for 3 drivers, so for Matthias, Doc Shelby, and Jackamundo. So that time will be added to their final race time as we are going to come around the start-finish line, the end of lap 22. So they'll have to make sure that they have quite a gap towards their near competitors. But that is going to be hard to achieve, especially with this late safety car. The tires we now know. So medium and softs. 2 softs, so Ols and Nick, they'll be looking up to make quite a few places. And the position change there. So far the best race for Matthias. John not having his best race. And I think Funky, who can still make up quite a bit of places. But I think most notably, Hookie, of course, going from P3 to P1 for the time being. Alpha drivers have made their mandatory 2 pit stops, so we don't have to wait for that either. Likely no further pit stops unless there are any incidents, and indeed it is safety car in this lap. So Hooky can now control his pace as he comes around curve pole fair. I think after Blanchimon he's likely going to floor it. The other place where you want to do it is as late as possible, which means inside of the bus stop chicane, so in between turns 18 and 19. So this is your first zone where you could potentially go for it. And you have to go roundabout now. If he doesn't do it now, then he'll have to wait until the bus stop chicane. Let's go on board. And he does floor it. He does indeed floor it after Blanchimon. This is a good moment to go for that run. He already makes quite a bit of a gap towards Nick. But yeah, Nick, softer rubber, is looking to go for that overtake fairly quickly. Will not have the help of DRS for the next 2 laps, but does need to come by as soon as possible. So a good start from Hooky, as the race has now been resumed. Meanwhile, Funky is very, very close to Ols. There's a little bit of a better line coming through the source hairpin, and I think he'll be using quite a bit of DRS to try and go for that overtake on that Mercedes in front of him. Good line through Rouge Radio, using all of the overtake he has at his disposal. Knows that he wants to make up positions as fast as possible, but it's so hard to break that top speed here, and he indeed won't go for the move. Nick, in the meantime, has gotten the move stick onto Hooky. So, off camera, we've seen a lead change, and this is what Nick needed to do. Had to get in front of Hooky as quickly as possible, and now drive away on those softs, so that when DRS is enabled, he has that 1 second gap. Hooky in turn also has to look in his rear view mirrors because Giggle is coming quite close to him, also 3/10 only away. As we see Ols closing down the gap towards Jess, who already has to give a 1.3 second gap towards the Doc Shelby. Okay, now slowly but surely falling further and further away behind Nick. Nick could likely go for a fastest lap time here as well, which could grant him another point at the end of this race. If there is a lap to do it, it's likely this lap where he wants to do that. Let's see if he can make that work. And he indeed sets the fastest lap time. So this will be the lap time to beat a 1:45.977 for that 1 extra point. But Hooky is still staying close to Nick. And not the best exit for Nick there either, as Funky has now made the move onto also Mick, pushing himself into the top 10. But with the way the standings are now, pretty much every driver is going to pick up points unless Giacomundo has a slower fastest lap time than Caden. Nick now defending a little bit towards the inside, making sure that if Hooky wants to go for it, has to come down the outside. But yeah, the gap's very, very close, and even without DRS, Nick is already struggling to keep Hooky behind, so this could play dividends towards the end of the race and make it a little bit harder for him. What is good news for Matthias is that the gaps with the Doc Shelby and Jess have increased, so he likely will not have to worry about losing too many places because of that penalty. And also because the Doc Shelby has a penalty to his name, so will, at this stage, lose only 2 positions. Funky, however, will be a driver that wants to have something to say about that, because he is already getting fairly close to Jess, only 3/10 away, and he might be looking to make a move towards the bus stop chicane, as Jess goes a little bit wider through Lefagne. On the end of this second sector, really hot on Jess's tail now, only 2/10, and I think he'll be going for a move. Could use a bit of ERS here already, is going to try and use that. Jess does give enough space, more than enough space even, and through the bus stop chicane, Funky's trying to make it stick. Does have to go around the outside here with that, but oh, it's actually Matthias now going for the fastest lap, so Nick really is struggling for the pace, even though he has those soft tires, but now with DRS enabled, he will have to watch out and look in his rearview mirrors. Funky, though, has made the move stick, so Funky finds himself in P9. So now go on board with Hooky. DRS going to be enabled. This should be an easy pass for him onto Nick. And if Nick is clever, he is going to harvest that ERS because he's going to need it towards the end of the race. And he will indeed slot in behind Hooky as he has taken over the lead now. Starting to look quite good for Hooky, who seemingly has the best pace here tonight. And Giggle has actually gotten the move onto Nick. So Nick really not having the easiest time there too. In Rivage, we saw him take some stranger lines earlier on. And it looks like Giggle has made the most out of that and gone with the move. As Matthias is also super close to Ghost, who in turn is close to Nick. So our top 7 all within DRS range. So they all have to watch out for each other as we are now on board with Matthias. Remember, he started at the back of the grid due to that engine swap, but now finds himself in P5. Still 3 seconds to his name. It could at least make it a bit easier for him on the track as we see Ghost try to break the toe towards Matthias. And that did work quite a bit. Yeah, the thing that is not going to help Matthias here is that the drivers in front of him will all have DRS too. So it won't be easy to overtake Ghost, especially because they're on the same compounds and the same tire life. Oh, and that's a tap! That's a tap towards the back of Ghost. That is going to be an extra penalty for Matthias. Ghost now losing a lot of position because of it. And does he have any damage though to his front wing? Does not have damage, thankfully. But this cost him a couple of places, and this 100% is going to be a penalty for Matthias. In the meantime, Giggle has not gone with a move yet onto Hooky, but I think he'll be waiting for that final lap. We could see a bit of DRS chicken here now, because no driver wants to be leading the pack when you make your way towards Eau Rouge and Radio in that final lap, because you know you're going to get overtaken. So unless you can make a 1 second gap, you do not want to be the driver in front. And we have yellow in Sector 2. That is when the Alpha Tower is in. So Doc Shelby has retired. And we have a safety car. We have a safety car at the latest possible moment. Lap 19. But now what's going to happen? Is anyone going to be coming in? Or do you risk staying out? And this is a tough decision for Hooky. Because if he goes in and goes for the softer tires, he definitely will have an easier time towards the end of the race. But if the drivers behind him don't come in, he will have to make up 11 places. Well, no, 10 places because Giacomundo is quite far behind. So let's go on board with Hooky. Let's see what he's going to do. Because both things can work here. If a lot of drivers go for stops, then it doesn't matter. But if you go in first and the other drivers behind you don't come in, then you're not going to win the race. So what is Hooky going to do? Hooky is going to stay out. Giggle stays out. Nick goes in. Matthias goes in. Yeah, I think behind him most drivers will come in. Actually, no. So Gold stays out. Truth stays out. Funky stays out. Ols perhaps might come in. No, Ols stays out. Jess goes in. John stays out. Okay, some split decisions here. Yeah, Matthias has been able to serve his penalty, I think. They're now on the fresh soft rubbers. But they do have to make up some places. So Nick finds himself in P9. So, yeah, safety car will have to come in because of the rules in this game. So we will be driving 2 full laps. But in those 2 full laps, Nick will have to make quite a few overtakes. 8 to be precise if he still wants to win the race. But if he makes that work, and he is definitely going to be our driver of the day here tonight. If not, then I think we'll have to give it to Hooky, because for the time being, Hooky has had a great race, showing the best pace so far, and making a way from P3 to P1 to, I think, pick up your first race win of the season is definitely impressive. Although a second nominee should also go out to Funky, who has made his way up to P6 from the back of the grid. So those drivers doing well, and yeah, the drivers with penalties, so Matthias and Giacomundo, they will definitely be finishing at the end of the grid. Let's go over towards the front of the field because the safety car will have to come in now. Let's hope we don't see any weird shenanigans come out And any issues with the safety car, which can happen if a safety car happens this late on in the race. We're now on board with Hooky, so we can have a good view of what that safety car is going to be doing. The lights should go off now, even though Giacomondo has not fully closed the gap yet. But it is indeed safety car in this lap, as goes per rules of the game. So now Hooky can play a similar tactic here, but the question is he going to do the same thing, so after Blanchimont, or is he going to wait this time till the bus stop chicane? Giggle knows what Hooky did last time around, so it'll be a little bit harder to play games in that sense. But we're first going to have our eyes on Hooky to see how he's going to make his restart. And then we're going to switch our point of view towards Nick, because Nick has a lot of places to make up. But he is on fresh rubber. All the other drivers, 6 or 7 lap roll mediums or softs, and now very late, just before the bus stop chicane, Hooky gets started. And because of that, has a little bit of a gap towards his name. So good restart by Hooky. Let's go on board with Nick, who has to make overtakes sorted as quickly as possible, but has picked up a 3-second time penalty for track limits, and will have to let John by again. Because, oh, a little bit of contact there again. Because you cannot overtake before the start-finish line. But yeah, that 3-second time penalty completely ruins Nick's race. And that is also his bit for a potential race win gone. So he can still make up some positions here, but is going to drop towards P10 if he, at least for the time being, because of that penalty. So let's go back up front as we see Truth and Funky battle for P5. Funky's going to try at the outside of Rivage here. A hard corner to overtake. Might want to go for a left-right switch, and into Speaker's corner is still behind. So can't make the overtake work here yet, but we'll be looking to go for a move as we find Nick now on the inside of Ols. Look how much more speed that he has there. Does push Ols a little bit wide, but yeah, Nick has to make a lot of overtakes work here as we have another caution in the sector 2. That is John off the track, and that is no damage, but a spin in Pouhon. And yeah, if you hit the curbs there a little bit, then it's oh so easy to spin your car out. In the meantime, Nick making his move onto Funky. Funky is still staying on the inside as they fight their way through Blanchimont, but knows he will have to concede as Nick goes way too wide, picking up another warning, but no further track limits, at least for the time being. Yeah, Nick knows he needs to make as much places as he can. Go for overtakes as quickly as possible, because there's no more DRS. You have a 3-second penalty, and that is what you have to live with. He is going to go for slipstreaming later on, but let's go to the front of the field because Giggle will have to make the move onto Hooky now. 4 tenths behind. Hooky's trying to break toe a little bit, staying on the inside here. Might be able to make that work. There's no chance for a late dive here. So unless Giggle can catch us off guard here, it's going to be oh so difficult for him to take that race win. Nick finds himself in P5. This is going to be relegated down to P10 after penalties are going to be applied. Ghost and Fozzie Bear are already further behind, so they don't have to worry about each other. Giggle seems to be too far behind now as well, so the only driver that will be watching out for it is Funky, because they can perhaps still make a move stick onto Truth. Mattia is also very close to Ols, but he will still be picking up a penalty, a time penalty, 3 seconds for track limits earlier on. Nick has gone past Fozzie Bear too. And oh no, Giggle picks up a time penalty. He could potentially lose a podium here. He's not going to lose a podium because Nick also has a time penalty. He's going to lose a position because of that though. But let's go to the front of the field. We do have yellow. That is Ols, but that does not matter too much. The driver that will be coming around the bus stop chicane first and take the race win here tonight is going to be Hooky. Your race winner, round 8. It is Hooky. Ghost comes round in P2. Third place for Giggle. Then it's Fozzie Bear, Truth, Funky P6. Nick finds himself in P7. So good effort, but that late stop not playing out in his hands. Jess P8, P9 for Matthias, P10 for Giacomundo. And then the final 2 spots will be taken by Ols and John. The only thing I'll be wondering about is I believe there was contact with Hookie earlier on in the race and with Ghost. If that is correct, and Hookie could still pick up a penalty, he might still lose his race win here to Ghost. But that is something that we're going to be finding out about next week. 2 weeks actually, because next week we're going to have a break. But when the results are finalized. So our provisional race winner here tonight is Hookie, and he is very happy to be out there on the podium. Taking the trophy there. A good race from him. As I mentioned, from my end, he is the driver of the day. So my question for him: what was your view on the race going into this race? What were your goals? Did you manage to achieve those goals? And can you make any comments about the progress in your race? And for Funky, the question that I want to give to you, considering the time penalty, do you think it was, well, the engine penalty, of course, do you think starting from the back, making a pit stop early was the best way to go around? And are you happy with your P6 classification? Those are the questions I want to be asking you too. The results then, full results: Hookie P1, P2 to goals, then it's Giggle, Fuzzy Bear, Truth P5, 6 it's Funky, then we find Nick, Jess, Matthias and Giacomundo in P10, and our final few positions go to Ols, John Mason, Odok Shelby and Caden, finishing their inaugural race in P14 with an unfortunate DNF on his end. And that was that for today then. So we will be moving out of the session, as we're going to be having a look at our calendar. So we have a bit of an idea of what is going to be happening in the weeks to come. So next week we're going to have a short break before we're going to go to the ERT of Spain at the Circuit de Catalunya. Which is near the beautiful Barcelona, the 15th of October. Another sprint weekend, so keep that in mind. Week after that, we go out to Singapore, Street Circuit, and round 11, the 29th of October. The week after that, the ERT of Britain on the legendary Silverstone. And then we have our final race weekend, the ERT of the United States, the 12th of November. Another race where we have a sprint race. So that'll be 4 sprint races in total, and we have had 2 so far, at least for the time being. Now, before any closing words, we're first going to have another look at the standings. I already listed the standings to you before the race, but some changes will be happening to that. But the good thing for Funky is that Nick will be picking up less points than him. So Funky is actually looking to extend his lead towards his main competitors. Funky was leading the championship so far with 147 points, a worst placing of 4th so far in round 5. Now with a P6 it's going to be slightly less, unless some drivers are going to be picking up any penalties up in front of him. Rachman is going to lose his P2 to Nick, who is going to be picking up a couple of points. And as well as Ghost is going to shrink that gap towards Rachman a little bit, and the same goes for Giggle, who's currently in P5 of the standings. So those are the standings for you. You've had your information for next week. We're going to be back in 2 weeks time, and we're going to be queuing out with some word from our sponsors, and then we'll be rounding off the stream for tonight. So once again, reminder of our prize pool, £2,500 prize pool split across the series, with a £50 voucher for either PS or Amazon for the winners of our respective tiers, and also the rest of the top 5 getting free entry into the next season. Constructor winners, also free entry into the next season, but the main prizes are going to be sponsored by NRL, which is this for one of the winners from our tiers, which is the FGT Elite Light Cockpit and the Elite ES1 Sim Racing Seat. and split between second and third drivers. So one of them from the 3 tiers will get the GT Light cockpit and ERS2 racing seat, and all drivers also have a chance to win the NLR wheel stand 2.0 if they compete in at least 10 races this season. Furthermore, sponsored by Aztec, we will be providing these boots for the shortest combined qualifying time, as well as Pure Sim Gear providing either gloves or socks to the driver with the most fastest laps and poles combined. Then we have a mystery sim box with a mystery shirt box for the winner of the driver rankings. Vespertine, ERT, who also sponsors the ERT Going Gets Tough award, for which you have to attend all races, finish outside the top 3, and complete all pre and post race interviews. And then you have a chance to win that t-shirt. And finally we have SimGrid and the Mental Health Foundation. So that was all the action for tonight. In the meantime, you can tune in with the race, the P2 tier race on Twitch. And in about 20 to 30 minutes from now, the stream here on YouTube will start with our P1 tier. For tonight though, for P3, all has happened. And hopefully you enjoyed this race as much as I did, with a nice race win coming out to Hookie, who I already mentioned. He's picked up his first win and his first podium as well of the season. I was your host for tonight. My name is Blitzguy, and I'll see you again in 2 weeks for round 9, the ERT of Spain, on the circuit of Catalonia. See you then.